This meeting of the Starkville Board of Alderman will now come to order. Please rise for the saying of the Pledge of Allegiance, after which Alderman Vaughn would like to open us with a word of prayer, and we will observe a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our Father and our great God, the God of the universe, God made the heaven and earth and the fullness thereof. Father God, again, the Mayor's Board, Father God, coming before you again. Coming before you again for guidance and direction, what way and what direction to take this city. James 4:2 say, we have not because we ask not. God, we asking you that you would take these hearts and these minds. Allow, Father God, that every decision that we make will edify you and glorify you. We pray that you forgive us of all our sins. We pray that you will fill this place with your spirit. Father God, that we all would conduct ourselves in decent and order in a Christ-like way. We thank you again so much for being our God and we your servants, being our Father and we your little children. We thank you for controlling our destiny, not leaving us in the hand of no man. We honor you, we praise you, we glorify you, we magnify you because of who you are and what you are. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Amen.
All right, you have before you a written agenda. Are there any proposed changes to the agenda as written? Alderman Wynn.
Item number 8, public hearing. That should be 300 East Main Street.
All right. That's clerical. I'm not even going to ask for objection on that. We'll make the change.
Okay, and on page 5, instead of recess, let's put adjourn, August 5th, 2014.
All right. Since the board could decide to recess, I am going to ask for an objection on that. Is there any objection to the change proposed by Alderman Wynn? Any objection? Any objection? Any objection? Saying none, please note the change. Alderman Wynn, do you have further proposed
No.
revision? Any further proposed revision? Alderman Maynard.
Mr. Mayor, under board business D, I would like to add to the agenda consideration of approval to authorize the mayor to sign a non-binding letter of intent with Cadence Bank for the purchase of the property and building located at 301 East Main Street.
All right, proposed revision from Alderman Maynard is to add a new item to the agenda under board business, Roman numeral 10. This would be Roman numeral 10D, and it would be consideration of authorizing the mayor to sign a letter of intent,
Non-binding.
a non-binding letter of intent for the, what was the rest of your, I've reduced it. All right, it's been reduced to writing. Since I've confused it some, I'll reread it. It's actually would appear as a motion, so rather than consideration, it would be move approval to authorize the mayor to sign a non-binding letter of intent with Cadence Bank for the purchase of property and building located at 301 East Main Street. Is there any objection? Any objection?
But, no objection, but what is that exactly, non-binding? What does that mean?
It is a letter of agreement which specifies a purchase price of $2.55 million between the city and Cadence Bank, and it otherwise sets forth terms where over 120 days the city and the bank would do their due diligence on potential terms of a purchase, and if all goes well, enter into a contract at the end of that 120-day period. But it is clearly specified as non-binding, meaning either the city or the bank could walk away at any time.
Okay, thank you.
May I be recognized, Mayor?
You may.
Alderman Maynard, are you referencing the letter of intent at the table?
Yes, sir.
Is there any objection? Any objection? Any objection? Any objection? Seeing none, please note the change to your agenda. Alderman Maynard, do you have further proposed revisions?
I do not, sir.
Are there any further proposed revisions from the members of the board? Alderman Perkins.
Mr. Mayor, thanks for the recognition. Mr. Mayor, with regard to Roman numeral item number 9, the heading is Mayor's Business. There's an item that's listed as item B, consideration of resolution of the City of Starkville, Mississippi, pursuant to section 27-105-367 of Mississippi Code 1972 is amended for the transfer of surplus funds to the Starkville School District. I move that this matter be tabled until the city receives a clarifying opinion from the Attorney General's office regarding the June 13, 2014 opinion issued to the City of Starkville.
All right, Alderman Perkins has made a motion to table item 9B, consideration of a resolution of the City of Starkville pursuant to section 27-105-367 of the Mississippi Code for transfer of surplus funds to the Starkville School District. Now, this is a motion to table, which is to end debate on this subject before the debate starts, so it will require a 2/3 vote. Do I hear a second?
Second?
Motion has been seconded by Alderman Nguyen. Alderman Perkins, do you wish to speak on, wait, excuse me, there is no comment on the merits. This is a motion to table. We'll move directly into a vote. It will
Mr. Mayor,
require
I'd like-
5 votes to pass.
I wish to recuse.
All right, Alderman Maynard wishes to recuse himself. And we will take all votes by roll call tonight, since Alderman Little is joining us by phone. When the city clerk calls your name, please answer yea, nay, or abstain to Alderman Perkins' motion to table.
Alderman Carver.
Nay.
Alderman Nguyen.
Yay.
Alderman Little.
Nay.
Alderman Walker.
Nay.
Alderman Maynard has recused himself. Alderman Perkins.
Yay.
And Alderman Vaughn.
Yay.
By a vote of 3 in favor and 3 against, this measure fails. Alderman Perkins, do you have further proposed revisions?
Not this time, Mayor.
Are there any further proposed revisions from the members of the board? Are there any further proposed revisions from the members of the board? All right, seeing none, a motion to approve the agenda as revised is in order.
So moved.
Motion has been made by Alderman Carver to approve the agenda as revised. Do I hear a second?
Second?
Motion has been seconded by Alderman Nguyen. Alderman Carver, do you wish to speak on the matter?
No, sir.
Any discussion, any discussion, any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of Alderman Carver's motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please signify by saying, excuse me, we'll take it by roll call with Alderman Little on the phone. Please answer yea, nay, or abstain as the city clerk calls your name.
Alderman Carver.
Yay.
Alderman Nguyen.
Yay.
Alderman Little.
Yay.
Alderman Walker.
Yay.
Alderman Maynard to approve the consent. Approve the agenda as amended. Alderman Maynard. Alderman Perkins
To approve the agenda as
is
amended?
amended.
Nay.
Alderman Vaughn.
Nay.
By a vote of 4 in favor with 2 against and 1 recusal, the motion passes. You now have before you the approval of the consent agenda as revised. Is there any objection to the approval of the consent agenda as revised? Any objection, any objection, any objection? Seeing none, the consent agenda as revised has been approved. And you have no minutes for your approval tonight, so we'll move directly into announcements and comments by the mayor and board. And I have one comment tonight, that is to introduce our 2 newest employees at the city of Starkville. I'd first like to introduce Mark Andrews. It is my pleasure on behalf of the City of Starkville to welcome Mark Andrews to the Sanitation and Environmental Services Department as our newest driver. Mark is originally from Indianapolis, Indiana. He is a graduate of Perry Meridian High School. Before joining the City of Starkville, he worked for Closet Maid in Ocala, Florida as a driver and fleet manager. He is the proud father of one son. In his spare time, he enjoys woodworking. Please join me in welcoming Mark Andrews. It is now my pleasure to introduce Stan Acey as our new manager of customer service and administration in the Starkville Electric Department. Stan is originally from Greenwood, Mississippi, and is a graduate of Pillow Academy. He attended Mississippi Delta Community College and is a graduate of Mississippi State University with a Bachelor of Science degree in Business Administration. Stan has over 30 years' experience in financial institutions with responsibilities including hiring, supervision of personnel activities, fostering positive work environments and operations, management, all to ensure excellent customer service. Stan has extensive experience working with customers and reviewing business and personal plans to help achieve goals. Stan and his wife Linda are the proud parents of two daughters, Carly Norman and husband Cole, Katie Aldridge and husband Brad. They are the proud grandparents of three grandchildren, Winters, Will, Harper, and Grady. Stan and his family attend First Baptist Church. During his spare time, Stan enjoys woodworking, sports, and spending time with his family. Stan is also an active member of the Mississippi State University Alumni Association and is about to begin his 25th year officiating Mississippi high school football. Please join me in welcoming Stan. That concludes my comments for this evening. Are there any further comments by the members of the board? Alderman Wynn.
First of all, good evening, everyone. I want to extend a big old congratulations to Jasmine Murray, student at Mississippi State who became Miss Mississippi 2014 on Saturday night. Jasmine holds a dear heart to us as board members and the mayor. She sang our national anthem before we took our oaths last year. Secondly, I noticed that Mr. Mark Nicholas is here. I want to say thank you so much for your groundbreaking, which will be held tomorrow. And I enjoyed reading your article that was in the Mississippi Business Journal on tomorrow. So we look forward to attending your groundbreaking ceremony. And everyone is at 12 noon tomorrow. So thank you. Mr. Mayor, I yield the floor at this time.
Are there any further comments from the members of the board? Alderman Mayor.
Mayor, I'd like to recognize the police officer around the back of the room. We sincerely appreciate your service each and every day for protecting us. Thank you very much.
Are there any further comments from the members of the board? Any further comments? Any further comments? Seeing none, we'll move to citizen comments. At this time, any citizen wishing to make comments may do so by coming forward, introducing yourself, and you'll be recognized to speak for a maximum of 3 minutes. Just as a courtesy to everybody, we do have two public hearings scheduled tonight. One is on the Cadence Bank property, and the other is on changes to the landscape ordinance. Now, this is an open public forum, so if you wish to speak on either of those matters, I will not stop you. However, your comments would be more timely on those matters if made in the public hearing. Mr. Turner?
Good evening. My name is Adam Turner, Ward 7, to the mayor and board. Citizens, that we have couple concerns. Let us be careful when you're dealing with money, school board money or whatever, because we wouldn't want you to have a jumpsuit and you mishandle of money, you will go to jail. We are concerned about stressing out of citizens to whether they want to exchange gunfire with the police department. I realize that's very scary, very dangerous. And we have the housing authority through street where I live, the slow to play sign has been removed, and we have a lot of speeding traffic through there, and I wouldn't want nobody to get hit. Thank you.
Where is that, Mr. Turner?
All right, right through my house, right through on the First Street,
Connie.
straight through.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Turner. Further citizen comment?
Mr. Mayor and members of the board, I'm Gordon Flowers, and I'm here representing Cooley Center and other entities that Mr. Mark Castleberry is the principal of. Some of you weren't here 2 weeks ago for our entire meeting, but to put it in context, we came in good faith to discuss the fact that back in the spring of this year, the city, signed off on by the mayor here, had approved a plat for the mill subdivision that included the old Cooley building. And the important thing here is that the city approved plat has Mill Street that runs all the way down to Highway 12 on the plans that the city approved. After coming here and requesting, we had one simple ask, and our request was that the mayor and council take whatever action that was necessary not to permit bollards, not to permit garbage enclosures, not to permit curbs, not to permit islands, anything there, in order, Mayor, that there could be full ingress and egress up through Mill Street. We came and made that presentation, and when we left, we had full, at least I did, had full expectation that the city officials, the city administrative officers would respond with some sort of information about our request. We've been sorely disappointed. There has been no response whatsoever initiated by the city, and our comment and our comments tonight are we are concerned about that in terms of a developer who is spending significant dollars here and guaranteeing an $8 million parking garage. So what we're asking for is, and what we want you to know, is that we have not received any sort of response. What we did do is, as late as yesterday, is we began requesting information, and we requested information from Mr. Kemp, Mr. Edward Kemp. We requested information from Taylor Adams, and I requested information from the mayor. Whenever I say we, that means me. And I don't yet have any information about the particular bollards that are shown on Mr. Nicholas's plat, or the handwritten notation that is by those bollards. And that is very disappointing, and it makes it terribly difficult for my client and for us to develop property when we can't get information or time.
Mr. Flowers, your time is expired.
About that site property.
Mr. Flowers, your time's expired. And Mr. Flowers, we do have you and your client scheduled for a public appearance in executive session, so should you wish, you will have an opportunity to address the board again then as well.
We'll be there. Thank you very much, Mayor.
Are there any further citizen comments at this time?
Thank you. My name is Mark Castleberry. Although I'm not a resident of Starkville, I've been a continuous landowner and taxpayer in Starkville for over 15 years. I speak to you regarding the closure of the south portion of Mill Street, stopping access between Spring Street and Russell Street. I speak to you as the developer of the mill at MSU, which represents our interests, both ownership and leasehold interest. My ownership of a residence at 114 Mill Street, and I'm representing Bill Reeves, also a property owner of 106 Mill Street. Early in the process to develop the mill project, before I committed to guarantee the $8 million grant for the parking garage by creating 152 new jobs and investing over $40 million in private equity to provide a badly needed conference center fully at our risk and with no incentives from the city, I was assured that this administration, they wanted a conference center and parking garage and that they would support it in the interest of the city. Specifically was discussed was to keep public access between Spring and Russell Street. This has been repeated on several occasions. It was an important issue enough to me that early in this process, I engaged my own counsel to research this issue. This research gave me the confidence that it would take a city-instigated action to allow the abandonment of the south portion of Mill Street. And I was verbally assured by the city that they would not take such action, since it would not be in the best interest of the public to block access between Spring and Russell. So I went forward based on my trust that the city would keep its word. The city has taken action contrary to this in allowing a private citizen to block a public street, and I don't understand why. There is no reason that the adjoining property cannot be developed and keep Mill Street open. I've chosen this public setting to ask the question, why? As Gordon said, we attended the previous July 1 Board of Alderman meeting and were asked in that meeting to discuss this in executive session. We made no public comment. We waited about 2.5 hours to follow your request. I assumed after that meeting there would be efforts to resolve this, since neither I nor anyone else in my team has been approached to engage in any conversation to resolve this matter. In our efforts to resolve this, we have instigated communication with various people in the city. We've been told by several, you'll need to discuss that with the mayor. The mayor has not returned a phone call or an email directly since this time, before leaving me with no recourse but to make this a public issue. I'm preparing to answer any questions you may have at this time, or to help me and the people of Starkville understand why you are allowing a private individual to block a public street to the detriment of all. I understand your response and questions may come during executive session, but I want the public to understand how public property is being handed out to the detriment of the city at large.
Thank you, Mr. Castleberry. Do we have any further citizen comments?
Good evening, Mayor and Board. Emmett Smithman, Ward 5. Just a couple comments tonight. I'm asking you to do the right thing on both of these. One, the $500,000 surplus that has been collected from the taxpayers, and we're trying to decide what to do with it. I would ask you to make sure that it goes back to the taxpayers, whether it stays with the city or goes to the school system, that the millage is reduced and taxpayers get their money back. Kind of like this, Mayor. I'm going to borrow $1,000 from you. I'm going to pay you $1,000 back, pay you some interest. Oh, I wrote the check for the wrong amount. Wrote it for $1,100 some dollars. You're going to keep the $100 and do what you want to do with it. That's kind of what the same thing you're doing to the taxpayers, taking the money and doing what you want to do it without any authorization to do that. And that's not the right thing to do. So if it goes to the school system, they should reduce that millage. You encourage the board members to do that. If they don't like that, they want to take a look at the next board appointment to the school board, that is the right thing to do. Number two, the $10 million on the new industrial park. If it's the right thing to do, we should do it as a county. It should not ask the taxpayers of the city to also pay again. We all part of this county. If it's the right thing to do, we need to sit down with the Board of Supervisors, come to an agreement, assess the $10 million countywide, and let's move forward with it. Don't need to put the burden back on taxpayers of the city again to be taxed again. There again, it's the right thing to do. It's the right thing to do here, right thing to do to the taxpayers also. And it's important. And I think taxpayers and our voters will remember this. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Smithman. Do we have any further citizen comments?
Mayor, Board of Alderman, it's good to see y'all. And I think it's about time let's bring Mill Street and the truth about Mill Street open. Okay? If you do your history lesson, Mill Street was a street that went all the way across Highway 12. 32 years ago, a little over 32 years ago, when Highway 12 was reconfigured, Mill Street ceased to exist. It was cut off by Highway 12. Then a private person bought that piece of property and they built a cinema. In fact, the cinema, if you look at the records, the cinema foundation is built in the middle of Mill Street, right? So, Mill Street was cut off at that private development, and a building was built in the middle of Mill Street. Mill Street ceased to exist at that present time. All right, so a private owner, before I bought it years ago, had paid taxes on all of that property. And now, when I bought the property over 7 years ago, we worked with Mississippi State trying to develop a good front door from Spring Street all the way around. And when we ceased to work with Mississippi State, we invested $20 million in this project of the 6 acres that we have. And I went to Mississippi State trying to work a deal out with them, trying about Mill Street. And the city fathers, I will tell the leadership of this city came to me about Mill Street. They did not want me to cut it off. They recognized that if they approached me in any kind of legal manner, which they didn't want to do because of the investment that we were making, plus legally, over 33 years, it had been cut off, and it was privately owned, that they were not going to win. So let me say one thing, is that the city came to me and with an agreement that I would open Mill Street. They had gone to the university. The university had agreed with the city that they would sell a part of that piece of property next to them on the back end side of the Cooley building, and for us to have adequate parking. The city had the forethought of trying to help making sure that this was a great development. Mississippi, and they made me sign an agreement. Nobody really knows that. The city knows that. I don't know if you've seen the agreement, but we signed it saying that we would open Mill Street and make Mill Street a public access. I want everybody to understand that Mill Street is a road to nowhere. What Mr. Castleberry wants is to come across to the right to Spring Street, which is private property, okay? And I agreed to do that. When Mississippi State backed
Mr.
up
Nicholas,
on
your
that
time's
agreement,
expired.
then I had to do what I had to do.
Thank you,
Okay?
Mr. Nicholas.
Thank you. I appreciate y'all's leadership.
Do we have any further citizen comments? Any further citizen comments? Any further citizen comments? Any further citizen comments? Seeing none, we'll move to public hearings. We have 2 public hearings scheduled tonight. The first is a public hearing related to the potential acquisition of the building located at 301 Main Street. And we're going to start with an introductory presentation from Mr. Adams. We'll then hear any questions or comments on the presentation from the members of the board, and then we'll hear any public comments following that.
Board, so that given the nature of this presentation, if Mayor, Board, if it suits you, I'll stand here so that both you and the public can see the presentation, but I'll also be happy to come to the table if that's the preference. And before I proceed, I'll ask Alderman Little, can you hear me over here?
I can.
All right, great. And Joel, if you'll come on up, I'll need that slide in just a second. But not yet. But by way of an introduction, first I'd like to with Alderman Maynard recognize Starkville's finest along the back of the room. So nice to see all of you here. Appreciate you all coming out for this presentation. Thank you all for being here. Chief, your forces always represent you well, man. There's been a lot of conversation coming out of the last board meeting related to the facility at 301 East Main Street, or otherwise known as the Cadence Bank main branch. We advanced the conversation coming from the meeting 2 weeks ago to the letter of intent that we presented to the board tonight. That letter of intent roughly contains a potential opportunity to acquire the building for $2.55 million. That by definition in that letter, the property is defined as approximately 2 acres of land, a 3-story building, and then with essentially everything else contained in the building by way of furniture, fixtures, and equipment, with the exception of 2 Cisco switches, which I think are currently used for the phone system, and then also the security equipment specifically assigned to the drive-through area of the bank, where I believe there's an opportunity for a continued presence, perhaps, well, it's spoken to in the letter that Cadence would like to maintain a presence, a drive-through presence there, and so the equipment associated with that drive-through will be excluded from the offer. What does that mean? Well, coming back to the original offer, Joe, if you would go ahead and fire that. As Joel's fire, as this is coming up, what you'll see here is we have roughly $1.27 million in certificates of participation that are ready to issue. And I should offer here that these are all, let me step out of the way of the board. These are all, of course, everything here is potential. The board has not acted on any of this yet. This is just a potential road to acquisition of this subject property. We have a purchase price of $2.5 million, including the land, the building, the phone system, security system, and furniture, minus the items that we just mentioned. The potential funding sources for that, we have $1.27 million in certificates of participation that are ready to issue. We believe that there is $400,000 to $600,000 in revenue that can be generated from the sale of an abandoned sewer lagoon on the northeast side of the city. That sewer lagoon between 20 and 25, say, acres. We believe from the appraisals that the board saw or ordered at the last meeting that we could get that land would market in the neighborhood of $20,000 per acre, which is represented here in that price. We're projecting $780,000, again, roughly derived. And we're just calling that revenue generated from other city assets. Again, at some point over the next few months, the board would hone in on the best way forward for generating revenue in this building and other potential city assets that might present themselves at that point that have not yet been fully vetted. But we're confident that there's 780 there, and then also that gets us to the 2.55. We understand that there'll be some money needed for renovation. The in cursory talks with design professionals in the community, we're comfortable that we can accomplish a renovation program that would not give us perhaps the ideal police station, would give us something that will suit police needs in the neighborhood of $250,000 to $350,000. That primarily comes from preserving as much of the program within the building as it is currently drawn as we possibly can. But certainly we would vet that number fully should the board decide to go forward. And again, we're saying that there's either a city asset or there's an opportunity to roll that into the certificates of participation. But obviously that's a decision the board has to make. But we're confident that there is a potential road forward there. We believe that the total potential funding that is available to us is somewhere between $2.7 and $3 million. And we're confident through conversation with police and chief. I'll come to you at this point. But chief, from our conversations, we believe that we can get into the building, or I should say, do you have any doubt that we can get your force into the building within those programmatic numbers? No, sir. All right. What's important about that, and I'm going to ask the chief to stay, because I'm going to ask him a couple more questions here in just a second as we look at specific aspects of the building. Certainly, the reason that we presented a letter of intent to the board tonight is because we admit that we do not have all the answers on this program yet, but we are confident. We have seen enough at this point to feel that there is a road forward for the board should they so choose to do it, understanding that the primary charges that we have received relate to delivering a product to police that is that fits within our current revenues, so that there's not going to be a request for taxes. We do not anticipate that that's coming at this point. Moving from that, there have been as it relate, there have been some questions that we have received from the community that I'll speak to quickly. The first of those, and this is the one I'm going to throw to the chief, relates to access and not being a police professional. Chief, would you like to speak to access at this facility versus that?
Yes, sir. Currently, at this building, we have two entrances and exits. The entrance and exit off of Lampkin Street, if you're pulling out, you're gonna take a left turn. That's a blind turn there. We've had some accidents there. Every time I pull out of there, I almost hit somebody, or somebody almost hit me, because the cars that are traveling west on Lampkin Street, they can't see you pull out of there. We got an entrance right here off Washington Street and exit. If you're pulling out of there and traffic at 5 o'clock, or rush hour, or 12 o'clock, you can't turn left because the traffic is steady there. So if we got a call on the south side of town, we have to go down, go up, go north on Washington Street and make a circle to get back, since Meigs is now one way. Versus the facility, Cadence Bank. We would use the entrance off of University Drive, Main Street, as a one-way street, as a one-way entrance. So you would be able to pull in there and go around to the back where the police cars are parked at. If you want to leave off Jackson Street, okay, there is a mirror across the street that reflects the traffic, and so they can see you pulling out of there. There's also another entrance behind the church there that you can come in or exit out of. So without a doubt, I think that's a whole lot better than what we have now.
Thank you, Chief.
Yes, sir.
Other issues that have been routed to City Hall from the public on this issue refer to basically the existing plan for this building and board. Certainly, there is a plan that exists for renovation of this structure, and certainly we can execute that plan. One of the things that I'd like to remind the public, though, the $1.27 million was never projected as an amount that could fully address the concerns of police in this building. In fact, if you go back and you look at the documentation that contained with that original program, the $1.27 million gets us paint on the exterior, addresses ADA concerns by way of adding an elevator, and addresses I guess call it command office structure, basically the command office suite. But it does not in any way make this a complete police station. And to do that, the estimates that we have on file are somewhere in excess of $3 million to renovate this building fully to the uses of police. Chief Nichols and Assistant Chief Thomas assure me that the Cadence building as it sits is already better than this building will be after we spend this $1.27 million on it. Is that correct, Chief?
Without a doubt.
That the security in the Cadence building is already far superior to anything that we have in or will have in this building. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And so the idea is this is at best using the plan that we have now. We're talking at minimum a two-phased process to bring this building to the point that we could call it truly something that would serve the long-term needs of police. This gives us an opportunity to do that in a single phase, and it is something that the police force, Chief, is excited about. Would that safe to say?
Yes, sir.
All right. Moving on from that, the only other concern, the other concerns that we have heard relate to taking a building of that size and that prominence off of the tax rolls. Certainly that is a concern. But one thing I would like to remind the public is that there is a proposed, call it 2-for-1 switch here, in the sense that when we evacuate this building, we anticipate that this building will be used for a private concern, and that this building will be added to the tax rolls. In addition, as has been noted in the newspaper, and I'm sure most of you saw or all, the bank, the Cadence Bank, has every intention of building another main branch or on a piece of land that is undeveloped that they already own. That building will also be added to the tax rolls. Now, obviously, this has not happened yet, but we anticipate that that the public will be better served by two buildings whose value, after this is renovated, after that is constructed, more current true values. We believe that the taxpayers will actually see, worst case scenario the same, but we hope that there will actually be an improvement to the assessment from this project. That is what we have. It is like I said at the last board, like I said at the last meeting when we first presented this to the public, we are very excited about on the staff side. We are very excited about what this potentially offers police, not just today. One thing, the Brinkley Sergeant report that we have is 20 years old, and it's based on a population number in Starkville that is 10,000 less than we currently have. We see the rate at which this city is growing. And I hear from Chief Nichols and from Assistant Chief Thomas on a weekly basis about the strains under which our police are the constraints under which our police are currently operating, and the way that their resources are spread thin. And this building offers us a means of dealing with their needs for several generations. We believe, and we appreciate your consideration of this matter. We appreciate you letting us bring it forward tonight, and appreciate the partnership that this potentially offers with the community. Also, I would be remiss if I did not close by thanking Cadence Bank. I cannot say enough about their desire and willingness to ensure that the way that we move forward is positive for the city of Starkville, and we appreciate their partnership as well. Board, are there any comments for me before I sit down?
Any questions or comments for Mr. Adams? Alderman Carver.
Let me get my notes. So, yeah, a lot of people in the public are talking, and they should be, and this is it's going to be a vital thing for the city if this makes. But so through your talks, you said there's no intention of the city being in this building, and I've heard from both sides that maybe this is going to be storage or court or.
Alderman, it is at the board's discretion what to do with this facility. Certainly, I think we would look to put it to its highest and best use, and the long and short of it is I would like to generate some revenue here to go towards this project if you all are agreeable, but certainly on the staff side, we'll go where you want us to go.
Can't say categorically, at least in the short run, that we wouldn't use part of this facility for storage. But if you had this space and the space of the new city hall on Main Street, there would be no need for office space in this building.
Okay. Also for revenue generation, a couple of things I'm just looking at as a citizen is, there's $400,000 to $600,000 from a lagoon. Is that kind of swamp? You can't sell swamp basically, but is that hard land or is that?
Our water department, Mr. Devlin's crew and his superintendent Charles Box, about 3 weeks ago started. Well, I should say several years ago we broke the dam there. And had that survey, got a clean bill of health, as it were, from the Department of Environmental Quality. But certainly as that land is low, some water has built up there. They started about 3 weeks ago draining that. We anticipate that the sale is likely to a dirt contractor who needs a place to spoil dirt to bring that up over time. Much like we saw with what has become the Campus Haven property on Highway 12, just south of the La Quinta Inn, there by the railroad tracks. We anticipate something similar. The $20,000 per acre figure that I gave you, that is as appraised currently. So that's a current value from the appraiser that based off the appraisal that you all ordered 2 weeks ago.
And also this plan for profit generation, it has some kind of multi-use. Are you figuring in some multi-use retail profit generation?
In this facility?
In the new Cadence building?
In the new Cadence facility, Alderman, any programming beyond police is something that we have not planned for at present, because you all have not directed us to go that way. Right now, we have limited revenue generation potentially to this space.
Well, I guess that leads into a further question. Have there been discussions or anything or plans? Will there be a vacant location in the bottom if we wanted to have some kind of private multi-use facility in it?
That is a concept that we discussed some. However, there is big concern on the part of police with having a non-public function in that bottom floor, sharing the
Gotcha.
space with police. So at present, that is not an avenue that we're pursuing.
And that's your feelings as well, Chief?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor,
You may.
Mr. Adams, what do you estimate the value of the furnishings in that Cadence building?
Alderman, that is a great question. And certainly I am not an appraiser or a business broker, but I think there's easily $3/4. I would say and I saw Steve Langston in the room somewhere who can probably bid, Steve, half $750,000. I mean, if you were to go buy, if I was to have to go buy it from you today, is that a?
Yeah, the retail price, Steve, not the.
The furniture that's in that facility is current furniture. It's very usable in today's offices. So yes, there's a large value. They have been constantly updating over the years. So you're not going to be inheriting anything not usable.
Sorry to put you on the spot there, Steve. You're just the expert and I'm not, man. Sorry about that.
Thank you.
Any further questions or comments from the members of the board? Alderman Walker.
I think I'm certainly open to looking at all the options for trying to have a better police station and a police presence in town. I think one of the things going forward, if this non-binding agreement is passed tonight, that I think it would be very helpful to get us to a place pretty quickly where we're taking some of these gross figures and beginning to narrow that down a little bit. I would be very interested in seeing a comparison from program elements that would be proposed for both this facility and the Cadence facility, so we can look to compare, not so we're just looking at just the bottom line, but that's a big part of this, both in terms of what will be the operational cost, just beyond renovation costs. What are the operational costs perceived for this building versus what would the operational cost be for the Cadence building if we got that? Staffing, all of those things I think need to be included as part of this discussion so that we're making sure that we have fully vetted this out. So we are moving forward trying to put the police station and the citizens of Starkville in the best light possible.
Thank you, Alderman, and that's exactly, that would be our plan exactly, and that's the reason we're requesting just the letter of intent tonight, because we recognize that we've got a few more things to vet on this project, so thank you for that.
Further questions or comments from the members of the board for Mr. Adams? Are there any further questions or comments from the board for Mr. Adams?
And Mr. Mayor, may I have one more thing just to? Sure. And this is one thing I meant to say a moment ago and just forgot, but I think it's important. There is an element of consistency when compared with other recent city projects here. When we're talking about a building that is perhaps larger than our present need is, but that we're confident will grow into, this is exactly like prior administrations considered when approving the city under construction now. Just to remind everyone, there's 2,400 square feet of shell space that is available for us basically to grow into or lease or add to the equation at some point. Admittedly, we don't need it now, but the shell is being built now with the concrete floor. Knowing that the city is growing and that we'll need to be there at some point, we are excited to have an opportunity to bring another project that plans not just for our growth today, but for our continued growth. And so again, board, thank you for your consideration of this matter.
Thank you, Mr. Adams. At this time, we'll hear public comments on Mr. Adams' presentation. Any citizen wishing to make comments may do so by coming forward, introducing yourself, and you will be recognized to speak for a maximum of 3 minutes.
Jim Gafford, Ward 5. I only have a brief comment I'd like to make, which is while I support fully, I believe that our police department deserves the finest facilities available. And while this imposing brutalist structure might seem to be perfect for a police department, and I'm not saying that it's not, the one question that hasn't been asked is for the longer-term plan for the growth of our downtown core, is this facility used as a police department the best use for us in the city? And I'm not weighing in on answering that. I want that question to be asked, and you guys deliberate that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gafford. Any further public comments?
Good evening, my name is Alvin, Ward 7. Some concerns of the citizen would be, okay, this would not contradict church and state, since we have a church out of the Caden Bank. Is this building on the historical landmark? We wouldn't want to break the law and disrupt, if this is a historical building and church and state. And this is round 3 of trying to get a police station, not a city hall, but a police station for our police.
Thank you, Mr. Turner. Further public comments? Hold on. Ms. Sistrunk is, Mr. Byrne.
Just a couple of things that, there've been my Burnham Ward too, there've been a number of proposals in past years concerning new city facilities, whether it's a city hall or a new police department or such. All of those have been presented with some sort of plan, in the sense that we could look at it and see a blueprint. We could see how the space was going to be utilized. Even with the renovation of this building, there were detailed plans as far as the outside appearance as well, the color, how the paint would be applied, the pattern, that it would be a renovation. We had an idea of what was going to be done. We have no idea right now as to what is going to be done with the space and cadence as to how the police department would fit in that. I think we need an opportunity to take a look at that. The other thing is that the building and the cadence building now, it's not attractive, but it has some appeal. It has landscaping, and that's a thing that, this is a small point, but it concerns me. The city is notorious for the lack of its attention to landscaping and to maintaining what plant material there is around city facilities. I hate to see that building and that property go downhill just because the city owned it.
Thank you, Mr. Burnham. Further public comments?
Can I add into that? I mean, if I could, I mean, that's an excellent point. Can we get something maybe before another public hearing or something, at least? I doubt y'all have got plans, but I know you've done some walkthroughs. Is it something that you feel adequate? Is it gonna be major renovation inside? This is Chief Nichols, you know, or is it the way it's structured now? Do you think, I mean, there's gonna be some tearing down of walls, or is it just, I know you said everything's better than this building, but, you know, is it something that you say some major renovation, or is it?
No, sir, not major renovations. We probably need to add a few walls because it's an open space. It's an open plan if you look at that first floor. So we can add a few walls.
Yeah, that's just something. Have y'all thought about that?
We have, Alderman, and really, and Mr. Burnham's point is spot on. I mean, this is, and really what we're, again, coming back to why we're asking for this letter of intent, we're asking for the board to greenlight us to begin taking what is sort of a broad target on the wall and focusing and giving us the authority to start focusing in, to build a program, to hone in on the financing piece, to know if there's a way forward or not. Because at present, I mean, we've had cursory conversations with design professionals, but most everything that's up there is an assumption at this point, or a guess. The reason for the request to enter this period is so that we can fully vet this project to see if it's something that works for us or doesn't work.
But basically, this is our statement of intent. We're sitting our
Yes,
foot forward and saying we want to pursue this.
Yes, sir, that's absolutely right.
but I think that needs to come as well, so.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Further public comments?
Sandra Sistrunk, Ward 2. I don't think that there's enough detail for any of us to really offer meaningful comments to y'all. I will say this, that this building is in really poor repair, and the police absolutely deserve a better home. However, this building is in such poor repair that we lost track of what it potentially could be with some renovation. If you, for instance, use some of the homes on Greensboro Street, anybody who's lived in town for any length of time have seen some of those homes become almost so badly run down that they would have been demolished and would have been unworthy of retaining. This building kind of falls into that category. Those Greensboro homes have been redone and are beautiful, and it was expensive. It will cost a fair bit to renovate this building. It's almost always cheaper to renovate something you own than to purchase something and renovate it. There's no right or wrong decision y'all are gonna make about this. You're just gonna make a decision. There's little meaningful that we can offer tonight in the way of comments, because this is just stuff thrown up against the wall at this point, and we don't know what the renovations are when you start making them comparable. What we do know is that over the course of the next year, 2 years, and that going forward with a purchase of a building and renovations is probably gonna cost more than renovating this building, which means you're not gonna have the funds available to increase pay to your police force, to hire a couple of new police officers, those things that really make the city safer. You also have coming up in August a request from the Link to issue those bonds that you authorized last summer. You don't have to issue them, you absolutely don't, but you have in good faith told the Link that you were looking at authorizing those bonds, and you would likely, by authorizing them, you would likely strongly consider issuing them. The other thing that we will find out over the next year or two is whether these numbers hold or not. The only one that I think you can give any specificity to there is the two are the purchase price and potentially the certificates of participation number. The others are all assumptions, and you don't know right now if they're good assumptions or bad assumptions. Some of you are betting your jobs on how good those assumptions are. And I hope you will take the time you need to think about this, to think about the best path forward, to give our police department not just the home that they deserve, but also the other resources that they deserve and need. So,
Thank you, Alderman Sistrunk. Do we have further public comments?
I'm Steve Langston. You know, we've been through a lot of things trying to find our police a home, and as y'all probably all remember, I've supported every single one of them. Sometimes you just get a plan come together and things just kind of work. So I really want to encourage you. If there's the worst location for a police department in town, this is it. I mean, it's not just the parking and the in and out, but I mean, it's in a congested area. We've got 3 churches trying to, I mean, the Methodist church has moved their, I don't want to call it the wrong thing, but their contemporary service down to this building on the corner. But we've got 3 churches. We have in this block here the most number of employees of any block in downtown on this side, including 2 restaurants, which have multiple shifts and that sort of thing. This facility, with all the traffic, and mostly that's employee traffic, I think, and city-owned vehicles, I just can't think of a worse location than this one.
You're referring to this building that you're
This
standing
building
in?
right here in this particular parking lot. I mean, there's a lot going on in our city, and a lot of things are being improved, and this is a wonderful opportunity. And I was unaware of whether y'all are trying to vote tonight or whether you're trying to get some sort of direction to further research it, but I would certainly take a hard look at the opportunity, because just having that plaza in control of the city and all of the things that we try to do in Main Street with no facility, to be able to have public functions and things, obviously the landscaping and that sort of thing would need to be maintained, if not improved. But anyway, I'd like you to take a hard look at it, because sometimes things just come together, and it looks like one of those opportunities.
Thank you, Mr. Lane.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Alderman Little.
I'd like to comment here, if I may.
You may.
Mr. Lane, thanks for your comments, and thank everyone else all the citizens for the comments tonight. It seems as though some think that we're about to make the purchase tomorrow, or sign on the dotted line tomorrow or tonight. That's not the case. We've got a non-binding letter of intent we're looking to send out to Cadence to give us 4 months to allow us to do our due diligence, to allow us time to do many of the things that you're suggesting that we do. But we've gone public with this. First, we needed to find out if it's even something feasible that we could afford to do to go any further. But now we're asking for 4 months by Cadence to allow us that time to do it. It'll give Chief Nichols time to figure out if what sort of improvements would have to be made as far as to bring it up to PD standards, minimum. Do we need to do it in phases? Can we afford to do it all at one time? And give us some real hard numbers. Alderman Walker mentioned that a little earlier as far as what are the operating costs. That's a big building. It's going to have big heating and cooling expenses, landscape expenses, and keeping those looking nice for the public. There's a lot of things that will have to be looked at, and we're not buying the building tonight. But what's wrong with us considering this option or any other option to making our PD better? And for the last 20 years, the city of Starkville's been trying to do something and hasn't been able to get there. And I can see why. But let's give us an opportunity. If in 120 days it doesn't work out, or even in 90 days it doesn't work out, so be it. But let's go down this road and just see what happens and see where it leads. It may lead us to a good place. I yield the floor.
Thank you, Alderman Little. Further public comments? Any further public comments? Any further public comments? Seeing none, do we have any concluding comments by the members of the board? Any concluding comments by the members of the board? Alderman Vaughn.
I think Alderman Lear hit all places for us. Give it a chance. I think that's what we all need to do. The public and all we need to give a chance. We need to take a look at it. We got 120 days. Nothing binding us. So I think Alderman Lear said enough for us.
I'll make some concluding comments of my own. Would you like to speak before I do that?
I just wanted to clarify one fact by the way I read the letter of intent. That 120 days will start from the entry of the purchase agreement, not the letter of intent. So the city may have, in fact, a longer time than 4 months to do its due diligence. So it's just like buying a house. The first thing you do is you kind of look at it. In this case, this is a non-binding letter of intent that roughly sketches out the terms of a potential deal. Then you actually enter into the purchase contract. Then you do the home inspection. And so that 120 days for the quote-unquote home inspection in this deal would start to tick at the entry of the purchase contract, which would solidify the terms. And how fast we get to a purchase contract from the letter of intent would be at the discretion of the board and the city and Cadence, just how fast that could take place.
But to be clear, there's nothing in this document that would keep either party from walking away at any time.
No, it says that this is, number one, a non-binding proposal. Number two, it's an expression of a mutual intent to negotiate in good faith. And number three, the parties shall not be bound to perform any such terms unless and until a definitive agreement, purchase contract, is executed.
Alderman Wynn.
Mr. Mayor, if there are no other comments, I have a motion I would like to make at this time.
Now, you do have that on the agenda under board business.
Okay, well, I'll wait until then. That's fine.
Alderman Carter.
Same thing, I think everybody in this town knows that this building's not up to par on a police facility. I think the analogy of purchasing a home is the best I've heard it. I mean, we gotta look at the cost, we gotta look at the renovation cost, we've gotta look, I wanna make this happen, honestly. But, you know, and those are those are pretty broad figures. And I know it's probably hard even to come down to those figures, but I mean, that's still, Alderman Walker had some great points, you know, on the operational side, day to day. I mean, you know, we don't know yet. And so, but at the same time, I think this board as a whole wants to move forward for the police department, for the city as a whole. I mean, it is a great location, but, I think there's gonna be some more figures coming in that we gotta, even just the day-to-day operation, electricity, you know, consumption, things like that, but, you know, again, I do support this. I'd like to support this. I think that those figures are still kind of generic, and I look forward to seeing everything that y'all gonna have come. And with that, do you think that it's gonna be about 120 days? I mean, is that too soon to start having some of these drafts that Mr.
I
Byron
think
talked
4
about?
months is still a good timeline for us to be working under. And the good news is if we've got something that's very active and something that looks very good that's not complete at the end of 4 months, but we could potentially have more time. The thing that's going to fix the time constraints on this is the will of both parties. Once Cadence or a majority of this board says we're no longer interested, that's when the discussion stops. But the most significant thing about this is the bank has made a step of good faith in publicly disclosing a city or a figure that they would potentially execute a contract for sale of the building with the city on. That's $2.55 million. And they've asked for the city to make a step in good faith, and that is to sign this letter indicating that we are interested enough to continue that conversation. Do you have further?
No, sir.
All right, I'm going to make my comments now. Much has been discussed, both out in public generally and at this meeting tonight. One of the subjects that has come up repeatedly in the public discourse is comparing the potential of this project with the potential of the current project, the renovation of this facility. And I'd like to speak to that directly because as I was one of the authors of that proposal, there is probably nobody with more invested in it than me. And if there's anybody that has pride of authorship in that proposal, it is me. Now, I fully support us signing the letter of intent on this project. And the reason I do is I think this has the makings of a much better deal for the city. The reality is this project, renovating this facility for police, was never going to be the ideal police station project. It was going to be the project that we could afford after 3 failed attempts to do a different project modeled off of the Brinkley Sergeant Needs Assessment Program. That's not ever what this project was. This was the project to do the best we could to provide fully functional police facilities for our police force. Now, that being said, the opportunity that this presents is, I think, an opportunity that benefits us both operationally and financially, potentially, provided that we can take the bones of this deal that exists now and put meat on them and deal in concrete terms. I think the potential is there. From an operational standpoint, if we were to purchase the facility for $2.55 million from Cadence Bank, without a doubt, on the first day, the keys were turned over to the city. That facility would serve as a better police station than this facility would after $1.2 $2.25 million in renovations. So operationally, it puts us in a better position. Now financially, there is $1.25 million different in the price. I still believe the opportunity is there for this to put the city in a better financial position than the current project would. And the reason is it gives us better, more valuable assets to work with. We will have potential lease space that is available in facilities at that point. That may or may not happen. And we'll also have potential lease or purchase space available here. And we have a piece of property that does have some value in the private sector that all could be a part of the financial transaction to do this. There are a lot of details that have to be worked through on this, but I do believe it's quite possible for us to get there. As I told Alderman Carver a second ago, I think Cadence Bank has made a very significant step of good faith to publicly disclose a figure that they would potentially sell the building to the city for. I think we owe it to ourselves at this point to enter into that letter of intent and to do our due diligence to determine whether we can meet the financial mandate that this creates. Because I'm confident that we can do it, and I'm confident that we can do it in a tax-neutral way. And I think if we can do that, all around there is no question that it's a better deal for the city than our current course. And I say that as the person that put the current course before the board. Any final comments before we wrap that one up? All right, now it's time for our first public hearing on potential changes to the landscape ordinance. Mr. Sanders, would you and Mr. Haviland like to introduce?
We have essentially taken the existing ordinance and reviewed and made various changes to the current ordinance. Essentially taking some sections and combining them with others, taking some text out and adding charts so they're more user-friendly. We have also changed some of the requirements pertaining to open space calculations and street counts. I will let Daniel go over those changes as they relate to planning counts.
Probably the three areas you want to focus in on, the areas that relate to tree counts would be the parking areas, the interior parking areas, and the perimeter parking areas, and then the areas that are considered non-vehicular open space. On the interior parking areas, we're doing a couple things. One, or a couple suggestions. One is to change the maximum number of continuous parking spaces from 10 to 12. And then also there's a 6-foot landscape strip requirement for head-to-head parking on every row. And we're kind of putting in what we're considering sort of a trigger. If you have more than 2 rows and more than 100 spaces, then you would be allowed to alternate that to every other row. And then we're changing the tree requirement from 1 per 100 square feet to 1 per 200. And what that does is kind of put it into a line with the actual square footage of the landscape island would be at 9 by 18. Gets a little closer. And then also just kind of changing the way it's calculating the perimeter landscaping for the parking, doing it square footage rather than linear, as in 1 tree per 35 and 10 shrubs. We're doing a square footage count just to kind of keep it consistent through the document of how everything's calculated. And then with the non-vehicular open space, we're kind of proposing using plant units counts, which are referred in the old ordinance, and we're keeping those in this one. Of 1 tree and 50 units per 1,800 square feet. And that is sort of a reduction from what it used to be. What it is currently is, for a small site, 4 trees per 500 square feet. or large trees for 500 square feet, which is kind of difficult to achieve. But I say reduction, it's not really reduction, because what we did with the plant units is we've increased the value of large trees to small trees, therefore kind of incentivizing the use of large trees versus shrubs and smaller trees.
Any questions that board members have of staff?
Any questions or comments from the members of the board? Are there any questions or comments from the members of the board? Alderman Wall.
First of all, I'd just like to commend both City Planner Havlin and Community Development Director Sanders for Daniel only being here for a very short time and having this dropped on him, and for doing a very nice job in a very short time frame to pull this together. I think this is a good start. I think the old ordinance, the existing ordinance, I think does a lot of really good things for our city. I think you can witness that again by going and look at the Starbucks and some of the other developments that are coming in. And I'm very confident that the ordinance, the changes that are presented here are going to ensure that the same intent that we have there is going to be maintained. I think this document does improve the usability of the ordinance. And that's something that we have to always remember, that these documents aren't static, that they're a living thing. And so as we move forward, again, we'll be able to find out where issues that may need to be addressed. But I think this is a step in the right direction for both maintaining what is definitely necessary and needed and wanted from a landscape ordinance by the community at large, while at the same time looking to see how do you balance the city's needs with the needs of developers.
Speaking to the usability of the document, the previous ordinance, if you count the cover sheet and the appendix, was 40 pages. The one, this draft version, not counting the cover sheet, we've eliminated 18 pages of appendix, becomes a 15-page document, but with the cover sheet, it's 60. So it's a pretty good reduction as far as just being able to get through and get the information you need, while not really losing requirements and like what the city's trying to achieve with it.
Any further questions or comments from the members of the board?
Mr. Havlin, your degree is in what?
Landscape architecture, and I'm also like.
Any further questions or comments from the members of the board? Any further questions or comments? All right, seeing none, we'll move to the public comment portion of the public hearing. At this time, any citizen wishing to make comments on the proposed changes may do so by coming forward, introducing yourself, and you'll be recognized to speak for a maximum of 3 minutes. Mr. Burnham, I was going to be disappointed if you did not.
Milo Burnham, Ward 2. I was in opposition to the ordinance under which the city now operates as far as the landscape ordinance when it was adopted back in March of 2013. I spoke against adoption of it. As far as one of the sore points that bothered me on it was the reference material. That has not been changed in the current version to my knowledge in looking at it. I still think the reference material or the materials, the publications that are referred to in the document are inadequate. Secondly, I have spoken with Mr. Sanders about this, but I'll mention it. I do not feel that it is the purpose of the landscape ordinance to protect the morals of the citizens of Starkville, and any reference to that I think needs to be removed. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Burnham. Any further public comment?
Let us as my name is Alvin Turner, Ward 7. Let us as a government body know exactly what we're doing and why. I deal with the public on a daily basis. Chief deal with the public on a daily basis. You all don't have to be cussed out or either. You know, I wouldn't want the citizens to be shooting at the church now. When we do things, they'll do to make it understandable that everybody understand what's going on. When you start changing and you all know and we don't know and somebody have to go to jail because of conduct problem, that's not right. When we do things, let us do what we all will understand and we'll be happy.
Thank you, Mr. Turner. Further public comments? Do we have any further public comments on the landscape board?
Might I just add one thing?
Sure.
That, I do think that it's very positive that they reduced the number of pages and the drawings and all of that material that was in the current ordinance. So, thank you for that. That does improve it.
Thank you, Mr. Burnham. Further public comment? Any further public comment? Any further public comment? All right, seeing none, we'll move back into final questions and comments by the members of the board. Are there any concluding questions and comments on the landscape ordinance by the members of the board? Any questions or comments? Any questions or comments? Alderman Webb.
First of all, thank you all so much. At one time, this document was initially like 45 pages and now it's 15. That implies to me that it has got to be user-friendly now. Thank you so much for that.
Any further concluding questions or comments from the members of the board? Any further concluding questions or comments? All right, seeing none, that will conclude the first public hearing on potential changes to the landscape ordinance. The next matter that you have before you is consideration of an economic development services agreement with the Golden Triangle Development Link. As you'll recall, just more than 18 months ago, we and the other cities and counties in the Golden Triangle embarked on what was and still is an audacious endeavor together in forming the first of its kind in the state of Mississippi, one-stop regional economic development organization. Now, I was a strong proponent of forming that organization and of the city participating in that organization. I will tell you, after 18 months of operation, the success that organization has had within the city of Starkville has exceeded even what my grandest expectations might have been when we entered that contractual agreement. Over the past 18 months, we have seen in the city of Starkville over $80 million of new development initiated and a potential of over 200 jobs created with active projects that have been brought to us or completed by the Golden Triangle Development Link. Now, that is a staggering sum, but I know sometimes in public forums, people throw around big numbers like 80 million, and when you consider the scale and scope of government, they may not be as big as they sound. To give you an idea of how actually big that number is, $80 million in new development is over 5% of the total valuation in the city. So if you'll consider that for a moment, in the entire history of Starkville, everything that's been developed has been increased in value by over 5% as a result of the work that the Golden Triangle Development Link has been doing for the last 18 months in the city. Not to mention, the 200 jobs are real, and they affect the lives of our citizens. All of that is said to say, when the link was first envisioned, this is hard. There is a reason it was a first of its kind. It's hard to get 3 counties and 3 cities on the same page agreeing to do the same thing together. And nobody was particularly excited about taking a step that would permanently bind everybody to the relationship because nobody knew how it would work. Well, the consensus, I do believe, has been that it has worked well for everybody. In addition to the great things that have happened in Starkville, of course, West Point and Clay County have had one of the biggest economic development successes in the nation in Yokohama Tire, which affects not only them, but is a major game changer for the region. And Columbus, Lowndes County, of course, have continued to enjoy much success at the Golden Triangle Airport in particular. So the question as of late has been, how do we make this a more permanent arrangement? And this contract is part of the vehicle that makes this a more permanent arrangement. It is still a 3-year contract format, as our previous contractual arrangement was. However, in this case, the link, rather than being contracted to all of the various parties that sign on to a contract throughout the Golden Triangle, says our operation will be most streamlined and it will be most beneficial to us if we have a contract with each of the 3 counties, a contract with Oktibbeha County, a contract with Lowndes, a contract with Clay. And in addition to that, it adds permanence to the contractual relationship, because this contract is set up on a rolling 3-year schedule. In other words, as long as we don't have a major event that makes one or more of the parties want to sever the relationship, this relationship can continue in perpetuity, and we are setting the expectation that it will continue in perpetuity. But there still are, in the event that there is an event in the future, opportunities to sever the relationship. So otherwise, the fundamentals of our contract are relatively unchanged. And we still have a $50,000 annual obligation. And one thing that is a little different is this specifies the sum of professional services that would be the maximum we would contribute each year. It's a maximum of $25,000 for professional services, whereas our previous agreement did not specify the maximum sum for professional services. So financially, we will not notice a difference from a budgetary standpoint in continuing the relationship. It is something, quite frankly, I view as a very easy decision. What I am asking you to do in a nutshell tonight is to continue the agreement, albeit in a slightly different form, with the Golden Triangle Link on essentially the same terms that we have previously set. And given the unprecedented success in bringing business and industry opportunities to this community that we have not seen before, ever, I don't think there's any question at all that this is the best thing for us to do at this time. Discussion. Alderman Carver.
First of all, it looks like this isn't even to us. It looks like it's a county contract? Or
Yes, the county is the contractor. Let me let Chris explain the framework.
There are 3 contracts under this agenda item, Alderman Carver.
Yes, sir.
The first one is a contract between the link and the county. The second one is a contract between the county and a quote-unquote sponsor that may want to chip in and pay some of the county's entry fee. And the third contract, Exhibit B, is the contract that concerns the city. That's what you're actually voting on tonight. The link included all of those documents to give everybody a full view of how the deal is put together. That third contract, Exhibit B, is a contract between Oktibbeha County and Starkville. And what it does is it assigns certain rights and duties that Oktibbeha County has under the contract to the city for the trade-off of the city putting in $50,000 for the Oktibbeha County entry fee of $350,000. So the city carries 50 of that in exchange for the city being able to put 1 member on the link board.
And how does this work? Just excuse me, ignorance. If this is a non-profit company, I mean, you're paying a non-profit. Are they for-profit or are they not non-profit?
They're non-profit.
They're non-profit. And then the third thing, that's a huge number. You're saying 80 million has been. You're saying there's been return on investment 80 million so far with the link in this city or this county?
In the city. Yeah.
Where did you get that?
22 million for C Spire, 50 million for Mill at MSU, and 13 million for the Adelaide assisted living project on South Montgomery.
What about the binder?
Oh, BSP. That's contributing heavily to your job count. It's not an extremely large capital investment, but it is 40 jobs.
Okay, thank you.
Alderman Wynn.
Mr. Mayor, on March 3rd of this year, you, myself, and another alderman, we attended a meeting with Mr. Joe McHiggins and one of his personnel members. I was very concerned when I left that meeting. The next night here, I personally read a letter that I knew that I would need in the future to protect me for my vote tonight. I read that letter on March the 4th. I'm going to read that letter again tonight. On Monday, and that was March 4th, I attended a meeting at the request of the mayor and was happy to do so. This meeting was regarding retail development / recruitment for our city. Additionally, at my request, I invited another city official, and that city official was one of the aldermen sitting before you at the table tonight, to attend. An inquiry was made to the out-of-town economic development official by Mayor Wiseman about the status of retail development for Starkville. The response was stated 2 times during the meeting that from day one, he, as in Joe McHiggins, was advised not to do retail development because it wasn't wanted. By the way, he even gave us the names of the people here in our city that were either in municipal government or maybe serving on some boards in some particular organization. I will not reveal those names. He informed us who was present during that meeting at that time. As an alderman, we should have invited this economic developer to a board meeting as soon as we took office. I cannot speak for other aldermen, but I personally assume that in addition to commercial and industrial development, that retail development / recruitment was also to be done. This is not the stance our residents have regarding retail development. Our residents want and are supportive of retail development. This constitutes to a quality of life for our citizens. As a governing member of the board for our city, I am committed to an integral part of retail development for our city. I have chosen to address this matter for transparency, for the best interest of our city. And again, I read that letter on March 4th. Probably for many of you all who were in attendance here, you didn't understand what I was doing. This is why I did it, to protect myself for the vote that I will cast tonight against this partnership as it relates to our continued partnership with the link. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Further discussion?
Maybe I recognize.
You may. Got Maynard, then Walker.
I am for this partnership with the link for a number of reasons. One, having been in Starkville for many, many years and seen many economic developers come and go with very limited success within the city here. I realize this is a risk and a vote of faith stepping out for economic development in the city, but what we had done the previous 20-plus years had not been extremely successful. To put it in perspective as to where our fellow members in other counties see it, the Board of Supervisors in Lowndes County voted today to provide the link $10 million in revenue to go toward a new community project, community and university combined, with East Mississippi Community College to train high school educated and community college educated workers to provide them opportunities for jobs within our region. $10 million is a big step. They're asking $50,000 a year from Starkville. They got a commitment from Lowndes today for $10 million. $50,000 is a small investment, in my opinion, for the opportunity and the potential to attract employment opportunities in our community in an area that is desperately needed. We need jobs for high school educated, VOTEC educated, and community college educated workers in our city. that provides a strong and diverse employment base. And you can't argue with the importance of that. I see it every day in the job that I do. We need that base of employment opportunities here. That is why I will support this. I think it's worth the investment. Ms. Sistrunk mentioned earlier, there's going to be an ask coming in a couple of weeks. That's a separate decision. One of the questions that I asked when we approved those bonds, the intent of those bonds was, will we have an opportunity as a board to approve or not approve those bonds based on the ask that's coming before us? And the answer was yes. We would have the opportunity to approve or not approve. So I don't think it's necessarily a given that those are going to be approved. That'll be another opportunity for us to look, and we've got to look at the next 2 weeks and see, do we feel that's the best use of that money, the best use of those resources? And that's for individual board members to decide. I've seen the success of the link in Severstal, in PACCAR, in Airbus, in Aurora Flight Sciences, in Stark Aerospace, in a number of other areas within our community. And we all benefit from that. We do. We have lots of citizens that live here that work there. But we need more of those opportunities to continue to see our whole community grow and develop. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Alderman Maynard. Alderman Walker.
I agree with almost everything that Alderman Maynard just offered. I believe that this decision tonight to lend our support and our $50,000 a year to the link is a fairly easy decision for us to come to. $50,000 is a significant amount of sum, but this group gives us the absolute best chance for development in our city. I believe that we are very close in the next 20 years to trying to compete with not our immediate neighbors. We're in competition with Tupelo. We're in competition for Meridian. Being aligned with the link and those other successful communities that the link has helped made successful gives us an opportunity to be competitive. One of the things that has hamstrung Starkville over the many years when it comes to economic development has been we just haven't been that competitive because we don't have the things to sell. The link gives us the best opportunity, I believe, currently where we are, to have meaningful economic growth. I believe the item that's going to come in the next 2 weeks is one that I hope everybody looks at and vets and looks at it very seriously. But that decision in 2 weeks should not bear on the decision that we make tonight. The decision tonight is, do we want to keep a very viable partnership that is beginning to grow, continue to do that? And I think unequivocally, it would be a disastrous move for this board to not support the proven economic development prowess that the link has shown both in our region and around the state. They give us the best chance for long-term success. Without that, we're back in the same boat we have been, and I think most people are ready to get out of that boat and ready to take Starkville and move us forward. So I will, without doubt, be supporting this measure to re-up the new contract with the link, and I encourage all board members to look at the broader picture and see how we do that. Retail's not coming unless you have people to spend money. That's just the fact of it. And in order to do that, we have to have more opportunities for people in town to come and live here and spend their dollars. If we do that, the retail development will come.
Further discussion? Any further discussion?
Mr. Mayor, may I be recognized?
You may.
Board, I found one error in the contract late this afternoon, and I fixed it with this one-page amendment. And the error was that it had the wrong dates for when the city would make its quarterly payments. the dates skipped from 2014 to 2016 and then went back to 2015. And so the only thing that this does is accurately shows the dates of the city's quarterly payment for the $50,000 as you go through the years. The substance of the contract did not change, but if the board does desire to accept the agreement, it will need to be accepted with the amended page at the table.
The motion to approve is in order. Alderman Maynard.
Make a motion to approve Economic Development Services purchase agreement with the Golden Triangle Development Link.
Alderman Maynard has made a motion to approve the Economic Development Services contract. It's actually with Oktibbeha County, right?
Yes.
The Economic Development Services contract with Oktibbeha County as presented and as corrected at the table by the city attorney. Alderman Maynard, is that your motion?
Yes, sir.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion's been seconded by Alderman Vaughn. Alderman Maynard, do you wish to speak on the merits?
No, sir.
Discussion. Alderman Carver.
I think I am going to support this just for the return on investment, but I think if years down the road, if we started seeing some kind of decline, and we've had that history before, if you see that, then I think we should, reconsider this contract. I know it's a 3-year with a 1-year extension, basically. But for now, there has been some return on investment. Now, I don't know about that 80 million. That seems kind of high to me. That might be a large figure, but I've seen some things, and I know there's other things in the works that could be some exponentially very large return on investment. So I think we should support this.
Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Seeing none, please respond by saying yay, nay, or abstain when the city clerk calls your name in response to Alderman Maynard's motion.
Alderman Carver.
Yay?
Alderman Weir. Nay. Alderman Little.
Yay.
Alderman Walker.
Yay.
Alderman Maynard.
Yay.
Vice Mayor Perkins.
Nay.
Alderman Vaughn.
By a vote of 5 in favor with 2 against, this measure passes. The next matter you have before you is a resolution that I have placed before the board. And in order to introduce this resolution, I'm going to do Okay. Yeah, we'll give Alderman Maynard a moment to exit the room. I'm going to do what I attempted to do in the resolution and summarize how we got where we are and offer my opinion as to where I think we should go from here. In March, I was notified actually by Debbie Clark, who was outgoing the chief administrative officer and the city clerk, that there was a surplus bond fund of old school district bonds that were remaining and had been sitting for 8 years in an account. Now, my first response to that is I've got to figure out what this is. So I spent a couple of weeks going through records dating back as far as 1996, even though the bonds date back to.
We need to stop and get them back on.
Yeah.
That's the law.
All right. The law says we have to stop and wait on Alderman Little since he is in for the meeting.
Can you hear us, Alderman? Alderman, can you hear us? Can you hear us?
I don't know what happened, it just dropped.
Okay, you're back.
Okay, thank you.
All right, David, we lost you in mid-sentence, and Chris immediately told me that the way the law operates on this subject is I am to stop in mid-sentence, so I'll pick back up, maybe not in mid-sentence, but same thought. So we're in March, and I was notified that we had just over $474,000 in an old school bond account. And our staff did exactly what a staff is supposed to do. They discovered an issue, and they brought it to me, and they said, what do we do? I spent a couple of weeks going through the best records we had to determine where the $474,000 came from. And the long and the short of it is everything but the accumulated interest in that account is over-collected taxes on two bonds that were issued in 1986. The city in several years, and it ranged from sums that were very little to sums as high as over $100,000. In several years during the 20-year payback period from 1986 to 2006, the city, on behalf of the school district, collected more taxes from the taxpayers than were necessary to pay for the bond obligations that were due in that year. And all of these funds were collected through the special assessment that was levied as a result of referendums on those bonds to build school facilities in the late 80s. So by the end of the payment period in 2006, there was over $400,000 in that account, and that account lay dormant for 8 years. And it accumulated interest until it accrued the balance of $474,000. Once I was sure that's where the funds came from, the way to resolve the issue seemed clear to me. These were school bond funds, and we'll transfer them in the ordinary course and in the ordinary manner that we transfer school bond funds in. The way we transfer school bond funds is we do this 8 times every month. The city writes the school district a check. That is not something that is subject to a board process. It doesn't go through the claims docket. Those are never city funds. State law requires the city to be the taxing authority on behalf of the school district. And the way the law works now is the school district is the issuing and paying authority on the bonds. So the city collects those funds every month as they come into the tax assessor's office, and then sends those checks directly to Starkville School District. My decision at that time was handle it in the same manner that we handle those transactions every month. I had my assistant call Dr. Holloway. He came over for a meeting, and I presented him the check. Now, that was my best effort, being as thorough as possible to make the right decision in this situation. I can tell you, in my opinion, now, I do not think that was the right decision. I will freely acknowledge that I made a mistake. As thorough as I was in determining where the funds came from, I should have, at some point in the process, kicked it up to the city attorney for a legal review prior to making that decision. I make many decisions in the course of serving as mayor. Sometimes I make mistakes, and this is one such time. So we have spent much effort trying to figure out the legal course that we could possibly take following that. In the aftermath of that, the board was alerted to the situation when the school district took up the matter of transferring the funds. The board then had a discussion about the matter, and it was a consensus in the room that we would seek an attorney general's opinion. We got an attorney general's opinion, which said that the city can transfer the funds under that statute to either the city general fund or to other funds. Now, the question that seemed to be remaining for me at that point in time was, is a fund of the Starkville School District and other fund that the city can transfer those funds to. In fact, I wrote the Attorney General's office a request for clarification on that subject. In the meantime, I also contacted the state auditor's office and called technical assistance, because the state auditor's office is the office that ultimately regulates and oversees fund transactions for all public bodies, including cities. And I asked them if they could provide any guidance as to how the city could legally transfer these funds. Well, they sent me an Attorney General's opinion that addressed the precise subject that I was seeking clarification on. And that opinion said the city has the authority in an instance such as this to transfer the funds to the school district. Now, having the answer, I withdrew my request for an opinion for the Attorney General's office. Frankly, I see no need for any more advisory opinions from the Attorney General's office. It's important to note that while Attorney General's opinions certainly can be helpful in aiding decision making, it is an advisory opinion. It is not a judgment from a court of law that is binding in that manner. So, for me, the fact that I received an Attorney General's opinion from the state auditor's office on this issue, and I conferred with the city attorney, and he said this opinion would give the city, would offer the opinion that the city has the authority to transfer funds to the Starkville School District. That is enough for me to ask this board to do what I believe is the right thing in the right way. I have always believed, from the moment that I found out what these funds were, that the right thing to do, and really the only rightful course of action, is to transfer those funds to the Starkville School District. And that is for a couple of reasons. First of all, these funds were approved through a referendum process by the voting public of the Starkville Separate School District to do school facility projects. Second, the voting public and the taxpaying public of the Starkville School District includes about 20% of the property value in the Starkville School District is not in the city limits. And so those taxpayers, about 20% of the taxpayers, or about 20% of the total funds in this account came from outside of the city limits. There is only one entity that has jurisdiction over both school facilities and all the residents of the Starkville Separate School District, and it is not us. Anything we could possibly do to utilize the funds could not address either the purpose or the total population that paid the taxes that caused funds to accumulate. So I feel like, based on previous advisory opinions issued by the Attorney General's office, we do have the authority to make the transfer. I feel like we can make the transfer under this statute. What this resolution does is it goes all the way back to the beginning. In the middle, it acknowledges for public record for now and forevermore that I made an error in directing the issuance of the check. It asks the school district to return the funds to the city, and then it would set forth going through the proper transfer process under statute where it's published 3 times in the newspaper, citizens have an opportunity to petition, and then after that process is complete, it would be properly transferred to the Starkville School District. This is my best attempt to recognize all the variables in the situation and try to do the right thing in the right manner. Alderman Perkins.
Thank you, Mayor. We certainly thank you for the recognition. To Mayor, distinguished colleagues, the press, and members of the public, I'm not going to be very lengthy, but just want to, as an attorney, just want to ensure that I address the the legal aspects of this particular matter. As a further preliminary point, I do not have anything to gain politically with my comments. I just want to ensure, as a member of this board and as a taxpayer, that this money is handled in full accordance with all provisions of the law. Just a few introductory comments. This is a check that was written on April 17, 2014 in the amount of $474,081.63. And I did not learn about this as vice mayor and as alderman until 26 days thereafter. And the way that I found out about it is that I'm a subscriber to the Starkville News. The Starkville News printed a front page story and informed the public that this check had been written, and certainly that was a surprise to me. Thereafter, I exerted, I can truthfully say, very substantial efforts for a request being made by the city of Starkville seeking an official opinion from the Attorney General's office. Prior to my efforts, there was a big move at that time to proceed with forwarding the check. There was a big move at that time with approving a resolution for the money to remain with the school district. But after great fervency, I exerted efforts to mention and state that we, the city of Starkville, need an official opinion from the Attorney General's office in the state of Mississippi on this $500,000 question. At that time, it was presented an opinion from the Attorney General's office that back in the early 1980s, and that opinion was had been superseded basically by state law. And the good thing about getting that opinion was that at least the governing body of this city would have something to rely upon and act in good faith as to what should happen and what we should do with regard to the use or transfer, if as the case may be, with that $474,081.63. So thereabout, on about May 27, thereabout of 2014, the Attorney General's office received a letter from our city attorney asking 3 questions in the opinion. The attorney set out the fact scenario about the bonds were issued in 1986. They were retired in 2006. So this is a indebtedness that has expired over 8 years ago. And so the attorney asked the question about, what basically can be done with these funds. Can they be used for the city's general fund or other funds? Or can we transfer them to the school? Or the final question that he asked is just inform the city of Starkville as to all of the legal options that it has with regard to the use or transfer of said funds. So on June the 13th, 2014, the Attorney General's office issued an opinion, and according to the city attorney, he received that opinion, according to him, on the day of the board meeting, being the second meeting in June of 2014. And once he got that opinion, the Attorney General's office indicated that the funds could be used in accordance with Section 27-105-367 of the Mississippi Code 1972 is amended, that is the applicable code. So the Attorney General's office basically gave an opinion that stated in part that the surplus funds that were in the bonds sinking fund account could be used for the general fund of the city or any other fund in accordance with the provision of that statute. Now, there's no language in that opinion, members of the public, that specifically says, regardless of what you heard, I mean, as a lawyer, you just got to look at the law. It's got to be interpreted. But there's nothing in that opinion that specifically states that the Board of Alderman can transfer those funds to the school district. Now, so this is the opinion that we got June the 13th. That's been 32 days ago. And so, and thereafter, the mayor has mentioned, in all great respect to the mayor of the city of Starkville, that he mentioned that there's an opinion that he obtained, or someone from the city administration obtained, and it's being represented from the state audit department. But nevertheless, wherever it came from, the opinion was issued back in December of 1989. Now, that's been 25 years ago. So the question that remains to me as a lawyer, we requested for an opinion back in May of 2014, and we gave all the relevant facts and relevant questions and relevant code section. It concerns me as an attorney, that is why did the Attorney General's office not mention that opinion that was just issued June 13, 2014, and this is an opinion over about 25 years ago. Now, personally, I have nothing against the school system. I fully support the school system. And we have a great school system. But at the same time, as an attorney, as a member of this board, as a citizen, I want to be completely certain that the city has all of its legal options before it as to what it can do with regard to the use or transfer of the funds in accordance with the law. So what I did to show leadership on this issue with nothing personal to gain and to bring this matter to finality and understand that these funds have been sitting here for 8 years. So what is the rush to judgment on this thing? We waited 8 years. So what I did was just to bring this to finality, and whatever the Attorney General's office says, that is the ruling. If the Attorney General's office says in that opinion that we only got one option, then we need to follow that option. So what the Vice Mayor did was, on this past Friday, July 11, 2014, I specifically requested a clarification of the previously issued opinion dated June 13, 2014, that was issued to the city of Starkville. So in that opinion letter, I want the Attorney General's office to confirm in writing so we'll know. So I asked them, three things primarily. I asked them to state in writing whether the money could be transferred to the general fund, to other funds of the city, and finally, I want them to address the question that the city attorney asked. That final question was, I said, in your opinion to me, please specifically state all of the legal options that the city of Starkville has with the use or transfer of the surplus funds. Now, the opinion that request that my colleague, the city attorney, tendered to them was that we got a response back within 30 days. And in the letter I sent down on July 11, 2014, I asked the Attorney General's office, And I worked there, I understand the process, I've drafted opinions before. I worked at the Attorney General's office. So I asked them to please issue an expedited opinion. And I would anticipate that we should at least get a likewise turnaround time no longer than what it was with the initial request. I would think that we should get a turnaround probably within at least 30 days. But, you know, because I would think that, you know, certainly they are familiar with the subject matter. They have already issued. So we only asking clarifying, for a clarifying opinion. So I would say if we got it back in 30 days, you know, we should have it at the latest for the second meeting in August. But whenever it comes back, and regardless of what the board does tonight, I mean, I owe it to the taxpayers to have a very definitive answer. And you can rest assured, public press, you know, as soon as I get a response, I don't care what it says. If it says give it to the district, and if that's the only option, that's where it goes. If we got a lot of options, we to consider those options. But as soon as I receive that response from the Attorney General's office, I'm gonna call the mayor, get him a copy, I'm gonna get one to Mr. Adams, I'm gonna get it to the city attorney, and I'm gonna ask them to put it in the box for distribution to the board members. And I'll go as far as, I'll give the press, I'm gonna give the press a call. I call Mr. Gentleman from the Starkville News, and I call the reporter from the Dispatch when I get it. So it's gonna say what it says. I mean, that's just gonna be the bottom line. So with all that being said, I think that was necessary for me to go through, because what I want to say in conclusion here, we need to get all of the options. And once we get all the options, we can make an informed decision. Now, we got an opinion that was written to us specifically on this question, and they told us, they said that you can use this money for the general fund or for any other funds in accordance with the law, with that specific statutory provision. They didn't say it could be used for the school district specifically. And of course, in the 1989 opinion, we don't know how that factors in from the point of view of the Attorney General's office. So what I would say, let's just get all of the information. Let's just make the best and clear, informed decision in accordance with the law. And once we follow the law, we can correctly put this matter behind us and move on to other matters of city business. And one thing we do not want to do, we do not, and should not rather, want to make a rush decision on this matter. You know, there have been mistakes made on this matter already, and we need to fully ensure that we proceed forward with the matter with great caution, and that we should proceed in accordance with all provisions of the law. And we can do that if we just wait another period, in my opinion, not to exceed 30 days, just to see what the General's office says. So what is gonna hurt? I mean, what is the harm that's gonna hurt waiting another 30 days when we have already waited 8 years? So I respectfully request my colleagues to just wait. There's nothing political about this with me. The press has called me and responded. I mean, naturally, they call me. I got to have full accountability and transparency. As a lawyer, I'm arguing the law, interpreting the law the best that way on my legal background, legal experience of being an attorney of 26 years, licensed to practice in the state of Mississippi and the District of Columbia. So I'm going to make sure that I do everything that I can to protect the rights of the taxpayers. And those rights can be fully protected, in my opinion, if we just wait until we receive that clarifying opinion from the Attorney General's office. And I'm going to yield the floor and just in a few seconds by saying, before I do, I'm asking my colleagues, let's just wait until we get the clarifying opinion. And I think that the taxpayers will be well served until we just wait. So, Mayor, I yield the floor.
Further discussion. Alderman
I
Ware.
only have one question in mind, is to the board attorney. Maybe you can address this for me. What is the state law regarding the number of signatures that are required on a municipal check for it to be issued?
that is governed, by my understanding, and I've researched this in the context of this issue, is it's governed by the signature card with the bank. And so, in this particular case, the city originally thought that the signature card required 2 signatures, but the signature card that was later produced by Cadence, that the city executed with Cadence in February of this year, only required 1.
Further discussion.
Mayor.
Alderman Carver.
You can have.
Alderman Perkins.
Just one thing I want to clarify. One thing I want to make sure the record is clear, the lady from 2, and I wasn't going to get into this, but this is important to say, the lady from 2 asked about what state law required and about the number of the signatures, and the attorney said that it's controlled by the signature card, and Cadence is producing only 1, but there is documentation from Cadence dated on about June the 27th of 2014 that gives some conflicting information as to what the attorney just said. So there's some conflicting information about who can sign and the number of signatures that's required. I'll just say that. Mr. Mayor, thank you.
And that's true. Cadence has produced conflicting information.
Alderman Carver.
Got lots of questions. First of all, for the city attorney, is this resolution that's been presented to us tonight, is this a legal document? I mean, in simple terms, is this something that, I've never seen a resolution derived for this kind of purpose, but I mean, is this something that would satisfy its purpose?
It does. For the city to properly transfer the funds under the statute, 27-105-367, there has to be a board order spread on the minutes, and the resolution can serve that purpose.
Okay. Has the school board, for the mayor, has the school board been notified that they will have to return the funds to the city account?
They have.
Are they in compliance with that?
Yeah, well, the school board, when they met last Tuesday night, their position was they wanted to hear from our governing body before they took additional action. So the ball was in my court to determine how I'd like to recommend that they hear from us. And this is my proposal to send to them. But I can tell you, I called Dr. Holloway before I dropped the resolution. I sent him a copy. They do know what I'm presenting tonight.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes. Hold on, Alderman Carver's got the floor.
Okay.
Alderman Carver.
Last meeting I stated that I felt that the money was, I didn't really go into where I thought the money should end up, but I did say that I felt that the money was given in error, and I still stand with that. And I guess it says this resolution just does that, if the city attorney has said that. I did a lot of thinking about it, and, you know, this was money that was collected not for city purposes, but for school purposes. I mean, it's safe to say that if you really do some questioning, that's what it was collected for. It was collected for renovations on the school system. And while the money could go either way, I mean, I don't think the money would be there if it wasn't for the collections on the purpose of the school. My issues with this is the mayor's already said money was collected from the taxpayers outside, a small percentage of taxpayers outside the city limits but inside the school district. If the money stays within the city fund, then those people that were taxed will never see that return that they gave. Does that make sense? And that small, if the people inside the city would see that if it was kept for city purposes, but the people that were taxed and have paid their taxes will never see that return. It was collected with the intention of renovation projects, and it was not collected for any other city services. It was totally and willfully collected for the city, for the school. And then last, gonna put it out there, I don't think that the city clerk really did anything wrong. I'm gonna stand with her on this one. I think that she did what she was told to do, and I'm not taking a political jab at the mayor or anything like that, but, you know, he's admitted again and again it's his fault. If anybody wants to put any blame on somebody, put it on the man that's placing the blame on his own shoulder. At the end of the day, if anybody here has a boss, if your boss tells you to do something, most of the time you're gonna do it. And I think that's what she did. She is a great employee. I mean, I'm gonna stand with her on this. I don't think this is a really even to have talk of termination or anything like that. But at the end of the day, I mean, if you want to put blame on somebody, not a political jab or anything, but the mayor has said it was his error, and he's accepting that, and I think that takes some pretty big shoulders to take that on. So those are my thoughts. Thank you.
Alderman Little, did you have something?
I did. I believe myself and everyone sitting there at the board table tonight would all agree that we don't like how we got to this point, but we're all, but we're here. And thank you, Mayor, for taking this on the chin. I appreciate that, and I think everyone present appreciates that. Money was collected in error. It sat there for 8 years, and kudos to Lisa Harden for finding the money. Not sure how long it would have sat there before anyone found it. The money was collected for the kids. I believe it should be used for the benefit of the kids. I would also like to see the school board reduce their millage if they ultimately receive these funds. And Mr. Mayor, at this time I'd like to move forward with your resolution. I move approval of resolution of the City of Starkville, Mississippi, pursuant to section 27105-367 of the Mississippi Code for the transfer of surplus funds to the Starkville School District.
Motion has been made by Alderman Little to approve a resolution of the City of Starkville, Mississippi pursuant to section 27-105-367 of the Mississippi Code for transfer of surplus funds to the Starkville School District as presented. Alderman Little, is that your motion? Alderman Little?
Yes.
Is that your motion?
It is.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion has been seconded by Alderman Carver. Alderman Little, do you wish to speak on the merits?
No, sir.
Alderman Nguyen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Let me say this before we go on any further, because we need to clarify some things that are inaccurate that were stated tonight. According to my conversation with Mrs. Harden on Friday, Mrs. Harden did not locate these funds. These funds were actually located by the previous accounting clerk, Mrs. Debbie Clark, who brought them to Mrs. Harden. So just for public information, Ms. Harden did not locate these funds. Ms. Clark, again, located these funds when I would call it when she was doing a little bit of general housekeeping prior to her departure in her position. Another something I need to say. I have documentation here from Cadence, and let me read, this is what it says from the branch manager. Cadence signature card does not specify 2 signatures required, but this is what it does say on here. It says Taylor and Parker are the only signers on the card, and that's what Cadence has on this document that I have. So I just wanted that noted for the record. This, again, is a document from Cadence. I yield the floor at this time.
Alderman Carver.
One last point, I think has been mentioned, but if we were to keep this money inside the public needs to know this, if we were to keep this money inside the city general fund, let's say, wouldn't we have to decrease our millage rate to reflect that same amount and then turn around and raise the millage rate again next year after this money's spent or budgeted?
Yes, under the statute, you have to decrease it by the amount that you took in.
So that's another reason into my vote was, keeping the money and all the hassle of dropping the millage rate and then turn around and raise it again next year. But at the end of the day, morally, I think it's school money. School needs to keep it. I don't think it was collected for city purposes, and that's pretty much the reason I'm voting the way I am.
I have one more question that I would like to ask of our CAO since he's our financial director. Mr. CAO?
Call for a vote.
Hold on. Are you calling the question?
I was calling for a vote.
All right. So there's going to be an objection to it. It's by Alderman Nguyen. So we'll hear from Alderman Nguyen, and then we'll see if there's any more comments.
I've been having mine up for.
Okay. And this will be my last question for clarification purposes, because Mr. Adams is also our financial director. And maybe this is something that you can clarify for me, since our board attorney did not make it clear to me. What is the state law regarding how many signatures are supposed to be on a municipality check? Do you know?
Alderman, I thought that there was a statute that reflected 2, but I would have to yield to the attorneys at the table to answer that effectively. Chris said he had researched it, so I may be incorrect.
And Alderman Nguyen, I can look at that. I don't have that handy right now to be able to cite you a statutory provision or to conclusively say that there's not a statute on point. And you're exactly right that Cadence has pivoted on this issue. The early communication was that 2 signatures had to be on there. The early signature card was that 2 signatures had to be on there, and those signatures had to be Mr. Adams and Mr. Wiseman. And then Cadence later produced another signature card saying that only 1 signature had to be on there, and Mrs. Harden could be one of those people signing. So that's how it's changed over time. You're absolutely right about that.
Alderman Vaughn.
I got 2 questions. Will the millage be had to be reduced? If it go back to the school, will the millage have to be reduced there?
That's something that they're gonna have discussion with their attorney about.
But if it come back to the city, the millage got to be reduced.
Yes, if it comes back to the city, the millage has to be reduced.
Second question, why we in such a hurry? Why we can't wait on the Attorney General opinion? Why we in such a big hurry? We waited all this time. What the rush now? Can't the school board wait until this time? What is the rush that? Why we rushing into this? Why we just can't wait till the attorney to give his opinion? Why we wait? Why we rushing?
Sure, and that one's for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess 2 reasons. First of all, the school board's asked for some definitive statement of the governing body, so they'll know what to do with where they are in this situation. And I think we need to give that to them. Second, as far as I'm concerned, we've gotten all the advice that we need from the Attorney General's office. Again, I find advisory opinions to be a useful tool, but it's not a court of law. It's an attorney in the Attorney General's office writing us an opinion. I've got an opinion that's previously been written on this exact same subject from the Attorney General's office that says under this statute, the city can transfer the funds. That's enough for me, and I think the school district needs an answer.
We got 2 different opinions. You got the city attorney got opinion, you got opinion, and both of the opinions doesn't coincide with one another. My question is, why are we in a hurry? The public want to know the truth. All of us want to know what the truth is.
Yeah.
I mean, why we pushing this issue? And why are we trying to hurry up and get an answer? Why we just can't wait till if all of them took out time to get another attorney general opinion? Why can't we wait on that? What we rushing for?
Hey, the opinions that are there aren't incompatible with one another. One says you have the discretion to transfer it to the city fund or other funds, and one says under this statute, and it cites the statute in the opinion, the city can transfer those funds to the school district.
Okay.
Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Seeing none, please answer yea, nay, or abstain as the city clerk calls your name.
Alderman Carver.
Yay.
Alderman Wynn.
Nay.
Alderman Little.
Yay.
Alderman Walker.
Yay.
Alderman Maynard has recused himself. Vice Mayor Perkins.
A nay.
Alderman Vaughn.
Nay.
So the vote is 3-3. I vote yea, breaking the tie, and the resolution passes. Would someone ask Alderman Maynard to re-enter the record?
Mayor, can we take a brief recess? We've been going.
Yeah, without objection, I'm going to move us into a brief recess. Any objection? Seeing none.
But let me tell you, the callous and peanut butter, and I told what the
I don't know, it's kind of like when I go to, that's right, when I go to Wendy's, my favorite is the single with cheese combo loaded down with a Diet Coke.
It's your comfort meal.
It's a balance.
Sure, we'll do that. Okay.
Not as much of a scoot, huh?
I know, she told me. She told me, she doing so much. Oh.
Yeah. Been meaning to see it yesterday.
Meeting will now come back to order. City Attorney has asked to brief the board on an issue.
Board, I just wanted to make sure that I misspoke before we took a recess. When Alderman Nguyen asked me whether there needed to be 2 signatures on all municipal counts as a matter of state law, and I said I'd research the issue. I researched the issue factually by talking to the General Counsel of Cadence Bank and by going through all of Cadence's documents and correspondence on the issue. I have not researched that issue legally. Would be happy to do so if the board directs me, but just want to be clear on that point. I don't know the answer to that question as I sit here right now.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
All right, the next matter before you is a report on the activities of the Audit and Budget Committee by Alderman Maynard.
Yes, sir. Recognized.
You may.
We have met twice since our last board meeting, once with fire department and once with the police department. Happy to report that both are within their current budgets and also do not feel they're going to need increases for the coming year. One item that we are going to have to consider very quickly is the purchase of a new pumper truck. If it is the will of the board, we can time that purchase so that payments on that truck begin as the payments on the current ladder truck are ending. So it will not be for an increase, and in fact, the payments on the pumper truck will be less than the current payments on the ladder truck. But if we time it to coincide with that, we won't be having to add additional revenue to that account and having to come up with 2 payments at the same time. So that's going to be the recommendation of the Budget Committee, I feel. Yes, sir.
You say that, is this the last year? I know you can have, after a purchase, you can have whatever they call it, 2 or 3 renovations. Is this the last year that pumper's, meeting fire code standards? You're talking about the pumper?
No, we're talking about the big ladder.
The ladder, yeah, one.
It'll be, 27.
The current pumper truck, though, is, when is the current
Oh,
pumper
I'm
truck?
sorry. I'm
Yeah.
sorry. That's 97, so that's, that would be 97. That truck, when it actually goes out, last issue.
So it's had, after a purchase, you can have like 3 modifications or whatever you call it, or
You can have 2, class 1 or class 2
refurbish.
and both. Like class 1 starts at 1,000, class 2 is, basic pump, and they're 40, 60.
And that was my question is, we've already done those 2 refurbishments, so this is the year we have to buy a pumper?
We haven't done a refurbishment of those trucks. Those are commercial trucks, those aren't customer trucks. Those are the trucks that were 15-year life that got extended to 20 years by the board, or by the legislature a couple of years ago. So those trucks can't take the abuse that fire service trucks have with them.
Any additional questions? Thank you, Mayor.
All right, the next matter on the agenda is the letter of intent for Cadence Bank.
So moved.
Motion has been made by Alderman Vaughn to authorize the mayor to sign the letter of intent as presented with Cadence Bank. Alderman Vaughn, is that your motion? Do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion has been seconded by Alderman Nguyen. Alderman Vaughn, you wish to speak on the merits? Any discussion, any discussion, any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, oh, I'm sorry. Please answer yea, nay, or abstain, as the city clerk, calls your name.
Alderman Carver.
Yay.
Alderman Nguyen.
Yay.
Alderman Little.
Yay.
Alderman Walker.
Yay.
Alderman Mayor.
Yay.
Vice Mayor Perkins.
Yay.
Alderman Vaughn.
By a vote of 7 in favor with 0 against, this measure passes. The next matter on the agenda is a request for approval of the City of Starkville claims docket for all departments, including the Starkville Electric Department as of July 3rd, 2014.
So moved.
Motion has been made by Alderman Little to approve of the City of Starkville claims docket for all departments, including the Starkville Electric Department as of July 3rd, 2014, for fiscal year ending September 30th, 2014, as presented. Alderman Little, is that your motion?
It is.
Do we hear a second?
Second.
Motion has been seconded by Alderman Carver. Alderman Little, do you wish to speak on the merits?
No, sir.
Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Seeing none, please answer yea, nay, or abstain as the city clerk calls your name.
Alderman Carver.
Yay.
Alderman Nguyen.
Nay.
Yay.
Thank you. Alderman Little.
Yay.
Alderman Mayor.
Yay.
Alderman Vaughn. I'm sorry, Alderman Perkins.
Nay.
Alderman Vaughn.
By a vote of 4 in favor with 3 against, this measure passes. That exhausts the open session portion of our agenda. You do have potential business for your discussion in executive session. A motion to go into closed session to determine whether there is a need for an executive session is in order.
So moved.
Motion has been made by Alderman Maynard to go into closed session to determine whether there is a need for an executive session. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion has been seconded by Alderman Vaughn. Alderman Maynard, do you wish to speak on the merits?
No.
Any discussion, any discussion, any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Oh, please answer yea, nay, or abstain as the city clerk calls your name.
I'm sorry, y'all, I'm tripping up on this. Alderman Carver.
Yay.
Alderman Nguyen.
Yay.
Alderman Little. Alderman.
Yay.
Little. Alderman Walker.
Yay.
Alderman Mayor.
Yay.
Alderman Perkins.
Yay.
Alderman Vaughn.
Yay.
By a vote of 7 in favor and 0 against, this measure passes. I'll ask everybody to vacate the room with the exception of the board so the board can begin closed session.